let's parlay this real quick. This super chat right here into the Bosa conversation because we touched on the Reddit situation, and somebody had asked the question, had we seen the Reddit comment? And yes, we have. We don't want to speculate on whether it's true or not because who knows? But there is another angle here, and I think Sunil brought this up, and I think it's a great angle, which is should he be traded? Like, at what point does it become an issue if he's willing to sit out 8 games and you're not willing to pay him what he wants, and it's going to come to a head anyways? Should they consider trading Nick Bosa? So, Sunil, I'll let you start. Do you think they should consider trading Nick Bosa?
I'll put it this way. I don't think that it should be off the table. And I say it for this reason. It depends on what you could get and what the offers are.
Yeah.
If right now, let's say Justin Herbert is on the block and Chargers are like, hey, give us Nick Bosa and a pick and we'll give you Justin Herbert. I'm doing that trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
me too.
And then you mentioned, you mentioned retooling, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is the biggest asset that the 49ers have that can justify first round draft picks, right? So, I think that Nick Bosa not on the team severely impacts the 49ers ability to be a contender. I think that the defense it goes from a top 3 defense to possibly not even a top 10 defense. That's how important I think Nick Bosa is. But it kind of just depends on, but I also think that allotting quarterback money to Nick Bosa is scary as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
That's a lot of money. That's you deciding that some other players that are elite are no longer going to be signed. Like, you're making a decision that is Bosa over, the top end talent that is there. Like, so I think it's definitely a discussion to be made. I think that the 49ers, I'm actually okay with the 49ers not having a blank check for Nick Bosa because ultimately that's going to be impactful in one way or another. So I'm not advocating to trade for Nick Bosa because I don't know the details of what that number is, but I'm not sitting here and being naive that it shouldn't be on the table either.
Yeah, I don't think it should be ruled out. I don't think any player is untradeable, but I do think the timing makes this really hard. If I was going to consider trading Nick Bosa, it'd be under 2 circumstances. Since the draft is already passed and you can't recoup those assets really until next offseason anyways, if I'm trading Nick Bosa now or before the trade deadline, then it's for players. Like, it's got to be for good players that can help me try to win now because they're still in a win now situation. You don't just trade Nick Bosa for a bunch of picks that aren't going to help you this year. Mm-hmm. If you are going to trade Nick Bosa for a bunch of picks, then you do that next offseason. And here's the deal. Nick Bosa has to come back, I believe, after 8 weeks. Otherwise, he doesn't accrue a season. So even if Nick Bosa holds out, there is an end to that holdout because he's going to want to be free at the end of this next season. Now, what the 49ers can do is, if they still don't come to a resolution, they can franchise tag him and then trade him next offseason. And then that's where you can go get the first round picks, flip those and draft and do what you're going to do with it. So I wouldn't trade Bosa this season or right now unless it was strictly for players that I believed have high-end talent that help this team not only win now, but in the future. The likelihood of that being the return is probably not very high. So if I'm going to even consider trading Bosa, it would come this next offseason because it should have happened this offseason if the consideration was ever going to be there. It seems like the 49ers, if they were to consider trading him, didn't think that it would ever get this far. And so if it does become an issue where he holds out into the season, they can't get a deal done, then that time comes next offseason, in my opinion.
No, I agree because even the players, Jesse, I think if it's not a quarterback, it doesn't make sense because where else, you're not trading edge guy for a guy that's of equal level of him on the edge. And where else do they really need that level of talent. So I agree with you.
Right.
Like it's got to be next season because it's most likely going to be for picks. But unless they somehow get a quarterback, which would
Yeah, and
be
that's it.
which fits the messiness of the initial topic about the 49ers quarterback situation always being messy.
Yeah, I think I think that wow, I went full Kyle Shanahan there with that long but I think that trading Bosa now would completely derail the season. I mean, you talk about all the situations that have already happened this offseason. If within 1 week you trade Trey Lance and Nick Bosa, that's
Yeah,
it. I mean, that's it. You can just
might
write
as
the
well
season
trade
off. It's over. Yeah,
CMC, Fred
it's
Warner, like
over.
just
It's over. It's over.
blow it up.
And I'm not saying that trading Trey Lance is near the impact of Bosa, but it's just the internal human side of things. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people that did like Trey Lance in that locker room. And so now if you also get rid of Bosa, not only are you trading an elite player, but you're trading a big part of that locker room on multiple fronts. You're just not going to overcome that. And that's why they have to wait until this next offseason.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I mean, even if they eke into the playoffs and Bosa doesn't come back till week 8, doesn't matter. You're in the playoffs. Bosa's fully healthy. He's actually probably going to be fresher as you get into the playoffs. It may not be the worst case scenario. It wouldn't be ideal.
Right.
Being ideal would be getting a deal done and he's here all season, but it's possible. And I could see something like that happening and still working out in their favor.
I'm interested in your opinion on this because, I think the common trend on people who are behind Bosa is just pay Bosa, right? Are you blank check to Bosa? Just whatever number he wants?
Yeah.
Yeah, nope. I think, and I think that's something that people, like some of the fan base doesn't wrap their mind around is where, obviously it's really, we're pro players and most, but like, sure, what's this number? Because even though the 49ers play hardball, it's never extended to this far. And we've never seen John Lynch be worried. You know what I mean? Like, and especially in this offseason, the way that they talked about the Bosa extension was we have budgeted for Bosa, and it was kind of like, this isn't going to be hard. This is going to be just, really easy kind of contract negotiations, right? The fact that it's going this way, like, at what point are we thinking maybe what Bosa's asking for is a little astronomical, right? Like, maybe the 49ers are making the right decision, not just signing him to what they're asking for, because that could potentially have ramifications for the 49ers moving forward as well. I don't know, but I think that that's one perspective to pay attention to. It can't just be like, the 49ers are being cheap. I don't think they're being cheap. You know what I mean? Especially with a player of this talent that's so important. We got to think, what is Bosa asking for? What's that number? Because maybe they're being smart by not doing it.
I think you can be really on both sides with this. I do. I think, like, for me, when I look at the situation, I look at it and say, if I totally understand Bosa trying to get all the money that he can, and I think he should. I also say that if the 49ers truly want to get this done, it is on them. Like, they have to make the decision. And if they decide to sign Bosa, or if they decide to meet those demands, he'll be in the building tomorrow. If they don't decide to meet those demands, once we figure out what those demands are, I may agree with them. So I think you can agree with both. I understand what Bosa is doing. I'm not mad at him. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, get your ass in the building. You make plenty of money. No, I get it. I understood it with Debo. I didn't like that he requested a trade so early in the offseason, but I understood what he was doing, and I was all about him getting paid. So I am pro player, but I'm also understanding the 49ers side of things, and I do think there's a limit to what you're going to pay him. If he wants $40 million a year, I'm like, kick rocks, dude. I'm not paying you $40 million a year if I'm the 49ers. Now, I understand why he would want it, but that's great. I'm not paying it. Somebody else can pay that to you. We'll see. So, we'll see how this thing plays out, but I'm officially in the worried zone is what I'll say. It's officially become a concern of mine. The fact that the final preseason game has been played, the final 53 has been set, especially if they make it through tomorrow, where they set their practice squad and all of that has happened. I would say the panic button needs to be hit tomorrow at the end of the day for me.